Welcome to Firearms Friday, coming to you from the Wyoming State Museum here in Cheyenne. I'm Evan Green, the firearms historian for the State Museum, and I occasionally get out of my wheelhouse and delve into knives and swords and edged weapons. And we had one of our subscribers and one of the commentators said they would like to see more videos about knives. So I said, okay, we'll do a video about knives. And I think there's particularly knives that were used on the American frontier in the West, and I think there may be some misconceptions about what the popular and most used knives were. I think there may be an assumption that every frontiersman had a big old Bowie knife to fight grizzly bears and Native Americans with, when in reality, most of the working knives, not defensive knives, but working knives that were used on the frontier looked more like something out of your grandma's kitchen than a fighting knife, particularly the Rambo elaborate things that you would see on the movies and video games today. So we're going to look at some knives, some trade knives and some handmade knives. So I want to start with this one. This is a Wilson skinning knife. It's got a label on it that says Wilson's Butcher Knives. And it's stamped I. Wilson, Sycamore Street, Sheffield, England. Hand forged. So a lot of the knives would have looked like this one. This is a Skinner design because of the curve and the lack of an extended point, so that when you're skinning your buffalo or your beaver, you're less likely to damage the hide than if you were using something like this one with a pointed end on it. This is more of a boning knife. You could certainly use it to skin something if you were careful, but they preferred this type of knife, this skinning knife. And again, this is a Wilson's from Sheffield, England. So here's what it would look like after you'd used it for a while. I don't remember what's the maker of this one. Doesn't really say. It's not stamped on the blade or anywhere. So this is what it would look like after it was used for a while. And there's this kind of debate or question. People say, well, we see a lot of antique firearms, but not so many antique knives. Firearms, when they were supplanted by a more technologically advanced firearm, tended to be kept. You put it over the fireplace or gave it to the kids or whatever. Knives really never went obsolete. They were a sharp piece of steel with a handle, and they could be used until there was nothing left. I mean, I love this one. What in the world? You can't even tell what the original blade shape was because it is so worn down. This one, I suspect, was used in a slaughterhouse or in a scabbard. I worked in a slaughterhouse in my misspent youth, and we had these aluminum scabbards. And you would sharpen your knife in the morning and then put it in that scabbard. And some of the knives that I still have from that era show this wear pattern here, where it was in and out of that scabbard multiple times and used. And I think the guys who were skinning the buffalo, which was a pretty nasty job, I think they had something similar, because it would be a hassle every time you needed to pull the hide or change your position to have to put that back in a leather scabbard. So I'm assuming they had something similar that they could just drop that knife into and grab it back out again when they were ready to move on. So here's one. This is a cool one. This is also a Wilson, and it has that more traditional butcher knife blade profile. And these trade knives, like the Wilsons, and we have some that are Green River. It's not Green River, Wyoming. It's Green River, Massachusetts. I think this is a Green River. Yeah, this is Russell's Knife, Green River Works. It's called a professional. This one's also seen a lot of use. And it's got, the handle's been wrapped tightly with string to give you a better grip on it, I guess. But these trade knives were shipped out to the American frontier in casks, hundreds at a time. They were a popular trade item with Native Americans who wanted to get their hands on a steel knife, and also by the trappers and traders themselves for dressing game. This is a pretty cool one. This again has that kind of Skinner profile, but if we look closely, we can see that it was made from a file. You can see the striations from the original file, and somebody put a wooden handle on it with a couple of rivets. But again, it got that Skinner profile so that you don't damage the hide. This one I thought was cool. Somebody cut down an 1860 heavy cavalry sword and made it into a knife. And it saw some hard use, apparently. So was the sword broken at some point, or did somebody just decide they needed something shorter to work with? It's damaged, so hard to tell what the history was, but clearly 1860 heavy cavalry sword modified into a using knife. So here, this is pretty cool. I don't know the history on this one either. I would guess that this is perhaps Indian made because of the very nice beadwork that's on there and the tin bells, tin things that are on it. This one, again, shows a lot of use, sharpened over and over. I think the handle might be a replacement, or the rivets at least have been replaced because it's a copper leather rivet that's put in that front position. This is Foster Brothers. I have no idea who they were. There was a firm in Denver called Foster Brothers, but I don't know if that's where it came from. Certainly possible. And of course, these thong and beads for decoration on that particular knife. And this is one that probably what people think of when they think of the wild frontier, because this is a Wostenholm and Sons Bowie knife from Sheffield, England. And there were a lot of these style of knives imported from England during the frontier era, and certainly some of them found their way into Wyoming over the years. This is marked IXL, so that's a trademark for that particular manufacturer. This might not be the original sheath, hard to tell, but again, boy, somebody botched this up trying to sharpen it. My dad was an expert knife sharpener. When I think I've got freehand knife sharpening down, I go pull one of his out, and no comparison. This, I don't know the history on this at all. It's a pocket knife, a large pocket knife with a locking blade. It locks open, and you have to flip the switch here in order to close it. So it's, again, wooden handled and somewhat large, and I have no idea of the date. This could be as recent as early to middle 20th century, or it could be 19th century. It's unmarked, so we don't know who made it. But interesting pocket knife. Okay, whoever asked for more videos on knives, there you go. If you have any questions or comments about any of these knives or anything else we cover in these videos, put your comments below, or you can call the museum, leave your contact information, and I will get back to you. So thank you for watching.